He dropped his toy under the bed. When he reached to grab it, another hand pushed it closer to him. What is this other hand doing under the bed? Who's underneath there? And why are they playing with him? Is this some kind of weird game? Or is something more sinister going on here? Well, whatever it is, it's clear that our young protagonist is very much enjoying himself. Our story starts like any normal day would. A young boy named Billy was playing in his room with his favorite toy. It was a little robot that he had gotten for Christmas, and he loved it dearly. But then he remembered his robot and decided to go check it out. "Billy," his mother said, "are you in there?" "Yes," he replied, his voice shaking. Maybe his mom was right. Maybe robots can't walk. But as he looked around, he noticed something strange. There were footprints on the floor. He stared up at the ceiling, trying to figure out what they meant. He couldn't tell where it led, but he could make out the shape of a staircase at the end of it. It was a strange, eerie feeling that sent shivers down his spine. He didn't know where he was or where this tunnel would lead, but he knew that he had to keep going. At first, he couldn't make out what was going on. They were his friends from school, and this wasn't just a game. It was a ritual, and he was the next target. It was too dark, but then someone in the crowd called out, "Bring the light." A single spotlight turned on, illuminating the center of the circle. And when Billy looked into it, he gasped. There, in front of him, was a group of children. They were all sitting in a circle on the floor, and in the middle of them was a table. On the table was his robot, but it wasn't just any ordinary robot. It was a robot that looked exactly like him. He crawled on his hands and knees until he reached the end of the tunnel. There, in the dim light, he could see a staircase leading up. He stood up and started to climb. He hesitated for a moment, not sure if he should go in or not. But then he remembered the footprints and the strange hand that had brushed against him under the bed. And he became convinced that he needed to find out what was going on. So he did the only thing he could think of. He crawled through the hole in the closet door. He knew that his mom was hiding something from him, but he couldn't figure out what. Suddenly, an idea struck him. He got out of bed and went to the closet. They sounded like whispers, but he couldn't make out the words. He continued to climb until he reached the top of the stairs. There, in front of him, he saw a door. It was slightly ajar, and as he approached, he could hear the voices more clearly. They were talking about him, and he could hear his name being mentioned. He hesitated for a moment, not sure if he should go in or not. But then he took a deep breath and pushed the door open. He opened the door and stepped inside. In the darkness, he could just make out the shape of his robot on the floor. He crawled over to it and picked it up. Then he looked around to see if there was anything else in there. That's when he noticed it. On the back of the door, there was a small hole. It was covered by his clothes, so he hadn't seen it before. But now that he was looking, he could see it clearly. He put his robot down and slowly opened the door a crack. He peered through the hole and gasped. They were small and barely noticeable, but they were definitely there. And they looked like they had been made by someone or something wearing shoes. But how could that be? No one else was supposed to be in his room. And besides, even if someone had been in there, why would they leave footprints behind? Was his mom hiding something from him? He didn't know. And the more he thought about it, the more he became convinced that she was. "Can I come in now?" "Sure," he said, hoping that she wouldn't notice anything strange. She opened the door and walked in, but she didn't say anything. She just stood there looking around the room. After a few moments, she said, "Everything okay in here, honey?" "Yeah," he said, trying to sound confident. "I just lost my robot, and I thought it might have gotten in here somehow." His mom smiled. "Oh, sweetie, don't be silly. Robots can't just walk into closets by themselves." She ruffled his hair and then left the room. As he approached the closet, he could hear the noise again. This time it sounded like footsteps. Was he really going crazy, or was there actually someone or something in his closet? He took a deep breath and slowly opened the door. Inside was complete darkness, but as he stepped in further, he could start to make out the shape of a person standing in the corner. He called out, "Hello," but there was no reply. "Who's in there?" Still nothing. He could hear the footsteps again, but now they sounded like they were coming closer. He started to feel scared, so he quickly shut the door and locked it. Then he ran to his parents' room and hid under their bed. He jumped and tried to turn on the light, but it didn't work. The bulb was burned out, and the only light came from under the door. As he continued to look, his fingers brushed against something soft, like a blanket or a towel. He reached out to grab it, but then he felt a sharp prick in his finger. Startled, he pulled his hand back and looked around to see what it was that had pricked him. That's when he saw it. There was a small object sticking out from under the baseboard. And when he touched it, he realized what it was. It was a nail, and it had almost hit him right in the eye. He took it everywhere with him, and they were the best of friends. He couldn't believe how many things were hiding under his bed. He had never looked under there before, and now he was starting to get a little scared. That's when he heard it, a noise that sounded like someone or something moving around in the closet. He froze and listened intently. Was he imagining things, or was there really something in there? He couldn't tell, so he did the only thing he could think of. He turned off the light and closed his eyes tightly. Then he counted to 100, and then he opened his eyes and turned the light back on. But when he did, he noticed something strange. The closet door was slightly ajar. It had been closed when he went to get his robot, and now it was open. But one day while they were playing, Billy accidentally knocked the robot under his bed. He tried to grab it, but it was too far away and his arm was just not long enough. So he did the only thing he could think of. He crawled under the bed to try to get it. As he searched around in the dark, he felt something brush against his leg. Billy quickly moved away from it and started to look around again. He hesitated for a moment, not sure if he should go in or not. It wasn't long before he heard a knock on his door. Billy sighed and went back to his closet to look for his toy. That night when he went to bed, he couldn't stop thinking about the footprints. On the other side of the door, he could see a dark, narrow passageway. As he moved through the passage, he could feel the air grow colder. As he climbed, he could hear strange noises coming from above. Inside was a large room filled with people. They were all standing in a circle around something, and when Billy entered, they all turned to look at him. And then he understood these weren't just children.